Monkey.
So it's a new year and the start of a brand new mini-series that I'm going to unearth and bring to light. Over the last few weeks, I've compiled a number of stories that I find fascinating and they've been hidden within the newspaper archives for decades. The series is going to be based on local characters of the past that shied away from society, such as eccentrics and recluses. Some recluses and eccentrics did this out of choice, but normally it was brought on by a tragedy or some sort of trauma within their life. And as you'll see in today's story, sometimes it was through no fault of their own. So ladies and gentlemen, get your popcorn out and get ready, because this is the story of Henry Lamont Cooper, the 39-year-old man-child of Salford.
The story of Henry Lamont Cooper is one that you've probably never heard of before. Neither did I. Until I accidentally stumbled across a jaw-dropping article from an old newspaper printed way back in 1947. It was simply titled, "Son Hidden, 30 Years in Kitchen," and I was intrigued to read more. But as I did, the heartbreak of the story seemed to consume me with a feeling of helplessness for the life of a poor man that nobody knew existed other than his own mother. It unfolded that Henry's mother, Clara, was a 79-year-old widow that lost her husband and father to Henry many decades before, when Henry was just a little baby. I can only surmise that she must have turned her back on life due to the heartbreak of losing a beloved husband. But something obviously went wrong. She wasn't well known to the people of the area and kept herself very much to herself. And by all accounts, she was only ever witnessed going to the shops before hurriedly rushing back to her house, reaching quickly into her coat pocket and fumbling her keys to unlock the front door. The door would slam shut, and the echoes of the bolts being locked from the inside would crescendo and reverberate around the cobbled streets of Skull Street. And awaiting to greet her, like a puppy, waiting patiently for its owner, was a 39-year-old son, Henry, who lived, slept, and ate within the four walls he was in, confined only to the kitchen, and restricted from everywhere else in the house, the curtains tightly pulled drawn, and the room only illuminated by the dimly lit flame of the flickering candlelight. He couldn't dress himself without the assistance of the withered hands of his mother.
Right, lift your hands up so I can get your jumper on.
He didn't know how to feed himself, as he had been spoon-fed like an infant child his whole life.
Right, here comes the aeroplane.
And shockingly above everything,
Good boy.
he could only speak in baby language. A child, trapped inside the body of a fully grown man. And outside the door on Skull Street was a hive of activity. Neighbours having cups of teas on the doorstep, gossiping and spinning a yarn about anything and everything.
She needs to clean the bleeding windows since Stable.
Hey, did I tell you about our Billy? Got caught smoking again at school. Told him wait till his dad gets home. Oh, where's his dad in pub? Yeah.
The echoes of kids playing in the street and the footsteps of the passerbys must have confused his poor mind. He was too scared to be inquisitive or curious, as he knew no better. But all he knew was the kitchen was his whole world and universe, and nothing seemed to exist beyond it. No friends, No questions and no answers. His spirit and consciousness nullified through the control of his own mother. Reading the case, there was no doubt that his mum did love him.
So who's my big baby boy then? Emre, that's it. Good boy.
And when he was found, he was in a physically healthy condition. But it begs to ask the question, was this mistaken love? An overwhelming passion and desire for another person? However, it lacks the deep emotional connection and understanding that genuine love requires. So to try and understand the story a little better, allow me to read some of the extracts from the original reports from 1947. Protected by his mother so adherently that she could not bear to see him face the normal hubbub of life outside his own front door. Henry Lamont Cooper, 39, of Scholl Street, Salford, spent 30 years in the kitchen, waited on hand and foot. In those 30 years, he'd never left the house, never saw a motor car, never from childhood spoke with any other living person except his mother. The story was revealed in Salford by a city welfare officer, called by the neighbours who broke into the house of Mrs. Cooper, 79-year-old widow, after she'd failed to take a milking for several days. Inside the house, lit only by candlelight, with the curtains drawn and heavy bolts on the door, they found Henry Cooper, a fully grown man, crouched in the corner of the kitchen, terrified at the sight of another human being. He could only speak baby talk. When we called with the car to take him away, he was terrified of it, regarding it as some strange monster. He was taken to Park House Institution in Crumpsall and died within 9 weeks of his mother's death. He was buried on December the 21st, and it's thought that after his mother's death, he had no will to live. It's a deeply moving story about a man that wasn't allowed to grow up. A man in body, but a mind locked in solitary confinement. Today we're going to tell his story and locate his grave, paying homage to his life and making sure that his story's told and that he isn't forgotten in death as he was in life.
So I'm in Manchester General Cemetery, which is also known as Harper Cemetery, and it's a very, very old, sort of decrepit looking graveyard where I am. I've just been having a scout about. Some of these graves are really, really old, and I don't think there's anyone really, you know, in the last couple of decades that have been buried here. But when I researched about Henry and his story, I literally nearly fell back off my chair. I couldn't believe what had gone on. And you know, when you look at the case and the story, face value, and you see, you know, he never spoke to another person other than his mum. He never, you know, interacted with anybody. He never even seen a car or another human being. Locked away in a house that was sort of tucked back off the side street, tucked away, bolted in, only lit by candlelight, and he couldn't even dress himself or feed himself, and he couldn't even communicate, he couldn't even talk, speaking in only baby language. And I don't need to delve back into the story because you will have already seen it at the beginning of the video, but I'm trying to get my head round the logic and thinking of his mother. You know, maybe she was a recluse herself, maybe she had a lot of, well, clearly she must have had some sort of, you know, mental problems or trauma gone in her life for her to do what she did to him. And she, like most people, that, you know, they never want to see the baby grow up, do they? But I'm not trying to be sympathetic to the mother, I'm just trying to understand. There's a fine line between abuse and cruelty and a mother's sort of undying love, and I can't really weigh up which one it is. And you know, I think it might be a little bit of both. But like I say, we're in the cemetery now and we're looking for his grave, and I've actually found it. So we're going to go over there now, have a look at the grave and sort of pay our respects to him a little bit, because like I say, it's a very unusual case and it's very strange, and it took me back so much. So yeah, without further ado, we'll head over there now and pay our respects. So as you can see, it's just headstones as far as the eye can see, and we've got like a little estate over here, and then just behind me right here is the poor grave of Henry Lamont Cooper. And I'll read you the headstone out. So it says, in loving memory of Elizabeth, the beloved wife of Charles H. Cooper, who died May the 11th, 1905, aged 49 years. And it says underneath, her willing hands shall toil no more. Also, Charles Henry Cooper, who died January the 21st, 1931, aged 76 years. Also, Clara Maud, the wife of Charles H. Cooper, died October the 30th, 1946, aged 79 years. And then we've got, at the end, also Henry Lamont, the beloved son of Charles H. and Clara M. Cooper, died December the 14th, 1946, aged 39 years. What a sad sort of life he led. You know, 39 years old, knew nothing else, didn't know that he was missing out on the experiences of life and communication and love, happiness, marriage. You know, he never experienced any of that. And 9 weeks later he died because he couldn't live without his mum. So he must have died of heartbreak, you know. Absolutely travesty. And I'm just so gutted that I haven't got a bunch of flowers to lay, because I would have done it. I don't think anyone would have gone to this grave. You know, I probably no one's been to this grave since the 1940s. You know, but just 9 weeks later, he passed away, and I think it was in an institution in Crumpsall. So this is the final resting place of the poor man, the 39-year-old Henry Lamont Cooper. And I would love to know your thoughts, what you think about his life, how, you know, his mum. You know, like I say, I think it was a bit of both. Obviously there's definitely more cruelty involved, but she must have had some sort of desire, and, you know, she never wanted a son to grow up. And I'm finding it hard to put the words together, because it's such an unusual case of a recluse that wasn't meant to be a recluse. You know, it was out of his control, and the poor man lies here today in this cemetery. And I'm just glad that, one, I've found his grave, and two, that other people that watch this video might want to come to pay their respects. So rest in peace, Henry. You know, my heart goes out to you, and I'm sure everyone that watches this video will feel the same way.
In the depths of a home in Salford lies a tale untold, where darkness reigned and silence controlled. Lived Henry Lamont Cooper, man hidden from day, in a kitchen where he longed to break away. For 30 long years he never saw the light, the outside world concealed from sight. His mother devoted but misguided love shield him fiercely like a white feathered dove. No joy of childhood and no friends to know, his voice confined to a babbling echo. Bathed in candlelight was his only guide, within the four walls of the kitchen where Henry would hide. until a welfare officer broke down the door and beheld a man had never seen before, crouched in fear and trembling alone. Human contact had turned him to stone. A childlike voice that only he could understand, trapped as a recluse by his mother's old hands. The cars looked like monsters to his untrained eyes, brainwashed by Clara and her wicked white lies. So Park-housed institution awaited his fate just 9 weeks past from his mother's heartache, but the will to live left along with the breath. He succumbed to darkness and didn't know about death. In a forgotten grave in Harperray, he now rests alone, his memory froze in time's unheard moan. The tragic tale of Henry Cooper remains unknown, but the grave that we found, we can now call his home.
People themselves, dull people that I thought dull, appear fascinating, interesting, mysterious, wonderful. But that's only the beginning. Suddenly you notice that there aren't these separations, that we're not on a separate island shouting across to somebody else and trying to hear what they're saying and misunderstanding. You know, you use the word yourself, empathy. These things flowing underneath. We're parts of a single continent. It meets underneath the water.